Hello, and welcome to this training module on sexual harassment and violence, understanding a sexualised society in modern Britain. This is part of your apprenticeship with Transplant Master Train, and you'll be looking at this with me, Andy Smith. I'm the lead safeguarding officer at Transplant, and together we're going to be analysing the cultures, not just in the workplace, but in the UK at present, and we're also going to be challenging those cultures. Are they right? Do they lead to a safe and inclusive society, or is there work for us still to do? Our aims of the session today include understanding why sexual harassment is a focus topic, analysis of the sexual standards that are set in modern society, normalise sexual behaviours. Now we're going to be opening discussion topics as to whether things that we take for granted, things that we see as normal, things that we just accept, are they right? Or are there still things for us to challenge? Do we still need to actually consider and evaluate our own behaviours and expectations? We're also going to look at a case study which will highlight an awareness of the frequency of sexual harassment, and we will also be discussing employers' responsibilities and liabilities in regards to protecting employees from sexual harassment. So let's consider why we're here. Under the Equality Act of 2010, employers have a duty to ensure that their workplaces are free from discrimination, harassment and victimisation. Sexual harassment is a form of discrimination and is illegal in the workplace. This means that employers have a responsibility to take steps to prevent it from happening and, of course, to address it if it does occur. Employers can fulfil their responsibility by providing regular training on sexual harassment prevention, consent, and healthy relationships in the workplace. It's also vitally important to foster a culture of respect and inclusivity within the workplace, where employees feel comfortable reporting any concerns about inappropriate behaviour. Perhaps the most important factor of this page is this mention of a clear culture of respect and inclusivity. If in the workplace, we've already mentioned this idea of societal norms and expectations, if we breed a culture within the workplace where the norm is one of respect, is one of treating each other with dignity, then a lot of these other problems aren't going to arise in the first place. So there's quite a damning statement we're going to look at now, and that is sexual harassment and violence is everywhere. It's up to us to spot it. Now, do you agree or disagree with that? Because there's two very different ways we can look at this. We can read it and we can put up a defensive barrier. We can put up a negative view on this and say, this is overkill. Yeah, it's fear-mongering. Why are we throwing this statement out there? Why are we making a problem worse than it really is in reality? Or we can look at it through different eyes and we can consider, actually, what do we mean by sexual harassment? What kind of culture is bred? What are our expectations? What do we consider as norm? Are these behaviours right? What kind of idea, what kind of culture is this breeding in society? And that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to have a breakdown of different behaviours and different things that we see, not just in the media, but in everyday life as well, and how they have an impact on us, on all genders. So we're going to discuss these factors today, and we'll return to this question at the end of the session. So what is sexual harassment? It's something we hear, but what is actually a definition of it? Now, this definition is taken from the Equality Act of 2010. So this is legal. This isn't just pulled off Google or Wikipedia. This is it, word for word. So the Equality Act of 2010 has this definition. Sexual harassment is unwanted conduct of a sexual nature which has the purpose or effect of violating someone's dignity or creating an intimidating, hostile, degrading, humiliating, or offensive environment for them. Now, we've got to our first case study of the day. Now, this is taken from a couple of years ago, and this was a real case in the UK tribunal. And basically what had happened, an employer had called one of his employees a bald idiot, and that man took his employer to court. Now, what they ruled was that calling a man bald is sexual harassment. Now, let's not beat about the bush. You might recognise a very small similarity between my smiling face and the gentleman on the screen. Even I read that at first and thought, are you for real? What? Are we going a bit too far on this? But then I actually considered it. And when you actually look at it in context, remember what we have just discussed as sexual harassment. And we put that definition on screen. Now, let's just analyse it. Was it unwanted conduct of a sexual nature? Now, did that gentleman want to be called a bald idiot? Of course he didn't. So, unwanted conduct for a start. Sexual nature, was it based on the characteristic of his appearance in relation, in particular, to sex? Yes, wasn't it? Because we're analysing physical appearance. In particularly, men tend to suffer more from baldness than women. So was it of a sexual nature? Yes, because it was affecting his physical appearance, in particular to a trait associated with one particular gender more so than others. Did it have the purpose or effect of violating someone's dignity? Of course it did. He was called a bald idiot. Did it create an intimidating, hostile, degrading, humiliating, or offensive environment? It's a tick to every single one of those, isn't it? So as much as at first we might kind of go, no, you're being a bit over the top here. Actually, when we analyse it, when we look at the definition, there is no doubt whatsoever that was sexual harassment in the workplace. And this is one of the first challenges I'm looking to put out in this course. When we say the word sexual harassment, it's easy to jump to thinking that it's only a problem for small teenage girls. It's not. Of course it's not. That's a stereotype. We are looking very much so today at sexual harassment as a societal problem, and very much so analysing behaviours, analysing language. Yeah, just because we used to say one thing doesn't mean we still should. Language, behaviours, society evolves. It's up to us if we want to move with it, or do we want to stick just with this very one focused mindset. So what does sexual harassment look like? Sexual harassment can occur in a variety of circumstances, and it's important for us to recognise early on that harassers can identify with any gender and have any relationship to the victim. If in the workplace, that could be manager, indirect supervisors, co-workers, it could be teachers, it could be peers, it could be colleagues, it could be a random person in the street. So it's important for us to recognise that sexual harassment can happen to anyone from anyone. We're going to start challenging some terminology now, and for some of you, this might actually be a bit shocking in the first place to hear words such as this. But we're going to talk about something called rape culture. Now, at the moment, the UK is described as having a rape culture. Now, what that is when attitudes, behaviours, and beliefs in society have the effect of normalising and trivialising sexual violence. Again, strong words, but we're going to be analysing this in detail. Do we feel it's accurate? This culture includes misogyny, which means kind of male-dominated ideas and behaviours, rape jokes, sexual harassment, online sexual abuse, including non-consensual sharing of intimate photos and cyber flashing, and sexual coercion. When behaviours such as these are normalised, they can act as a gateway to more extreme acts such as sexual assault and rape. So it's very much this idea of when this culture, when this platform of normalisation, of acceptance is built, then it can lead on to much more serious scenarios. So we're going to do some more generalized case studies now. We're going to look at some quite varied topics, and we're going to discuss what do these areas teach us about sexuality, and not just sexuality, but how should the different genders act? How should they appear? What are the stereotypes behind them? What are the expectations? What are the pressures? So there's a variety of topics on screen at the moment. We are going to look at adverts. We're going to have a chat about social media. Disney, that's an interesting one. We'll talk films, we'll talk reality TV, and we're even going to have a little discussion about pornography. What does that set in society? What kind of ideas, what accepted behaviours does it promote, and from what age? As you've guessed, the first piece we're going to talk about is Disney. Now, you're all familiar with the Disney princesses, the Disney princess idea. What standards does that set, and from what age? What does it set girls to aspire to? Now, there's the obvious we can look at, isn't there? How should a woman look? You know, it's very kind of in line with the early noughties size zero stick figure fashion that went through, isn't there? You've got the hourglass frame. If we look at the girls as well on the screen, what's the facial structure like? What's the makeup like? Yeah, they're all pretty much the same person, realistically, aren't they? You know, even with adding diversity into the mix, we've still got the same facial structure, the same big eyes, the pretty eyelashes. You know, we've got all these kind of Disney princess vibes to it all. Apart from the looks, what does it also suggest about how women should be? Up until very, very recently, Disney have always kind of focused around this very traditional storytelling method. If we look at the girls now and what they're wearing, do they look like that at the start of the film? If you think about watching any of these movies, they start off poor, helpless, defenseless, yeah? And what does it take before they can actually turn into these beautiful princesses, to become whole, to become fulfilled? It's the man, isn't it? You know, it's a very kind of 1950s kind of styling on the storytelling. They always need this strong man to come and rescue them, to help them become the people they should be, and then, and only then, can they flourish. It's interesting that Disney have started to move away from this, and it feels quite deliberate when you look at the new films that's been brought out, such as Brave, for example, and there's several others with very, very strong female lead characters. And it does feel as though Disney are deliberately trying to get away from this kind of old stereotypical picture. But when you look at the messages sent out through these films, obviously we're watching these films from young ages. What standards does it set for girls? What expectations do they have in their role of society? One thing I do want to make very clear, though, is it's not just girls that have this problem, is it? What did the early Disney films and current continuing Disney films, what standards do they set for men? The logic that we've just applied to the Disney princesses, let's have a look at the heroes of the films. If we look at these guys, what do they look like? What expectations does that set for what should a man be? Yeah, if we look at the body shapes on there, it's big triangles, big chests. The one that makes me laugh the most is Aladdin. If you think back to watching Aladdin, Aladdin's a street rat. I'd kill to have pecs and abs like that, and all he's eating is about 3 apples a day. It's not realistic, is it? It's not putting forward the realities of the world. Then we look at the princes. If you go through history, the majority of European princes had a weight problem. They didn't look like that. But this is, again, the expectation being set through perfection, the chiseled jaw, perfect hair. Not that I'm jealous in any way, but we've got the perfect hair, the perfect physique. Again, from a very early age, what pressures are being put on lads appearance wise, but not just appearance wise. We're talking here about behaviors. Yeah, if we are supposed to be the all saving hero, yeah, the alpha male coming through all the time, what expectations, what pressures does that put on young lads? Yeah, so we're looking at this from two very different angles here, but pressures, expectations very, very early on. So that leads us on to a topic, male self-perception. And the first thing we're going to look at is actually an advert from a company called Lynx. Now, I'm sure you're well familiarised with them, the male deodorant company, the spray cans, etc. Before we watch this advert, I want you to consider, what did they used to do? Yeah, what was their marketing campaign 10, 15 years ago? What did we used to see on our screens? What do we associate with Lynx? You spray a bit of Lynx Africa on your body, what happens? So consider that as this next video plays.
Is it okay to be skinny?
Possible, mate. What was that?
Is it okay to not like sport?
Is it okay to be a virgin? To experiment with other guys?
Is it okay for guys to wear pink?
To be nervous?
To have long hair? To like cats?
To take a selfie?
To shave your...
To be depressed?
To be scared?
Wait,
Is it okay for me to be the little spoon?
come on, man.
Go online to search and see for yourself.
Is it okay to be skinny?
Possible, mate. What was that?
Is it okay to not like sport?
Is it okay to be a virgin? To experiment with other guys?
Is it okay for guys to wear pink?
You know, do you not
To be nervous?
To have long hair?
To like cats?
To take a selfie? To shave your...
To be depressed?
To be scared?
Wait, is it okay for me to be the little spoon?
Come on, man.
Guys,
Go online to search and see for yourself.
So now we've watched that video, it's quite interesting, isn't it, interpreting what's changed, seeing where Lynx as a company have gone from 10, 15 years ago. You know, their whole marketing campaign was all based around this alpha male image, wasn't it? This whole spray on our scent, and out of nowhere, all these women will come running towards you. Now they're addressing real issues. Now, you can say, well, men didn't think that way. These are new issues. They're not, are they? Let's be honest. You know, these are thoughts that people have always had, you know, internalized but kept under wraps. They've just not been normalized. They've not been accepted as questions that we should ask as men. It's refreshing that companies such as Lynx, where previously they've really stuck with this, our market is alpha male, our market is making you attractive, have opened up. When during that advert did you actually see a can of Lynx come out? When did you see any mention of scent apart from right at the end when they said who was behind that advert? It's a very clever advert, and it's a refreshing one, because by putting it out there in TV culture, in media, it's immediately normalizing what we discuss. It's normalizing what we talk about. It's clever, and it very much shows a change in culture. Here we go. This is the article that I was discussing, the survey of body dissatisfaction, so going from 15% to 43%. What do you think is the cause of all this? There's several, isn't there? We can look at the impact of social media. How do we portray ourselves on social media? It's always in our best light, isn't it? You know, we're not going to very rarely put pictures up of ourselves if we don't like them. If we don't think we look good, they don't go up. So we look at other people's social media and they always look great. They're always in the best places. They're experiencing the best things. And it's so easy for us to look at and go, why don't I look like that? Yeah, we've got Men's Health magazine picture here, and the images that are taken from it. Good old Jon Snow, you know, this flowing locks and good looks and chest and abs. I don't really need to say much more, do I? But this has led to people going, I need to look like this. This is the standard I should be. When you look at the big heroes on the screen and you see who people are idolizing over, it's easy to feel inferior. It's easy to go, well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but I can't achieve it, you know. And it's easy for us to forget that guys like this, it's their job to look like that. You know, their time allowances are very different to ours. They'll spend days, hours, even whole eating schedules based around purely looking like this. We don't all have that luxury. Yeah, and this has led to things such as new terms, new eating disorders being coined, bigorexia. Yeah, we talk about anorexia, again, something that if we're being hugely stereotypical about, who do we associate it with? Typically, it was teenage girls. That has been very stereotypical. It applies to all. But we think of anorexia, we think of bulimia. It's gone the other way as well. We're now talking about things such as bigorexia, which is basically this need to get as big and as pumped as possible. There's an interesting study where they discussed different role models through the decades. And if you look at the 1970s and 1980s, you look at the big films of the time, there was Rocky, Rambo, Terminator, you know, so your big film stars at the time, Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And this led to an increase in blokes getting down the gym, pumping the iron, you know, the very old school little metal gyms they used to be. And it led to an increase in steroid abuse. That changed over 10, 20 years, and it was very much in line with media. You look at the big films of the late 90s, early noughties, and it was stuff like The Matrix, like Fight Club, which starred individuals such as Keanu Reeves and Brad Pitt. You know, muscly lads, well toned, but nowhere near the same level. It was very much this kind of, I think, David Beckham kind of fashion. Yeah, and it led to a change in the male ideal, the male body type. If you take those three, it sounds like I've got something against blokes with hair, but those three also had very, very pretty hair, the blonde tips, and it's what everyone started copying. Move it on 20 years again, and they're now talking about this, Game of Thrones, Marvel culture, and big muscle is back. And it has led to these terms: bigorexia, muscle dysmorphia, which is where you look in the mirror and you never see what you want. There's a fantastic image that was done by Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, and he's huge. I'm sure you all know what he looks like. He's in numerous films and he's had his wrestling career. He's massive, but he's showed this image of him looking in the mirror, and it's just that skinny teenage boy always looking at him. So this idea of muscle dysmorphia is this focus that you're never achieving what you want. It's never big enough, and it's leading to problems with steroids, leading on to roid rage, manorexia, obsessive workouts, which is known as exorexia. Yeah, so all these kind of spin-on terms, when we say eating disorders, stereotypically they've been linked with women in the past. Stereotypically, we know there's always been a problem for men there, but it's interesting seeing this kind of new culture focusing through as well. And eating disorders are eating disorders, whether it is too much, whether it is too little, and the knock-on health effects of them all. So the next topic we're going to focus on is adverts, whether that is TV, whether it's magazine, whether it's those little videos that pop up on your social media. We're going to discuss adverts, and before I play you a few little clips, I'm just going to leave a question hanging. What sells? Have a think. So the first advert that we're going to look at is actually the Gillette Venus razor blade. Now, there's a very, very simple question I'm going to ask you before this advert plays. What is the purpose of the Gillette Venus razor blade? What does it do? What is it? What is its purpose in life? Yeah, so think about that as this video plays.
I'm your Venus, I'm your fire, your desire.
Introducing Venus from Gillette, the first razor designed to make you feel like a goddess. Protective cushions surround 3 blades for the closest shave ever in just 1 stroke. So close your skin stays smoother, longer. And that's something all goddesses are entitled to. Now individually sealed blades are easy to store, easy to change. Venus, reveal the goddess in you.
So you've seen the advert, yeah, you've seen the setting, you've seen the models. What was that question we were considering though? What is the primary purpose of that product? Yeah, it's a simple one. It's to remove leg hair, isn't it? Just another question though. What did we not see at any stage in that video?
I'm your Venus, I'm your fire, your desire.
Introducing Venus from Gillette, the first razor designed to make you feel like a goddess. Protective cushions surround 3 blades for the closest shave ever in just 1 stroke. So close your skin stays smoother, longer. And that's something all goddesses are entitled to. Now individually sealed blades are easy to store, easy to change. Venus, reveal the goddess in you.
Did you notice? Not a single leg hair in sight. How glamorized can you get? Yeah, if you want to advertise a product that's really effective at removing leg hair, get a good old hairy leg on the job and show a nice bald strip down the middle where it's been done. Does this look a bit over glamorized? Yeah, it's selling the sex goddess appeal. If you use this, you too can be one of the Venus goddesses lying on the beach. If we put that in a more realistic aspect, how this is actually done, you've got someone with a dressing gown on, leg in the bathtub, hair going down the plug. That's a bit more realistic. Yes, they're using a bit of artistic license to sell, but what expectations yet again are going through these absolutely perfect women with barely anything wrong in terms of modern expectations, modern ideals that are put through. I think they're already playing the market a little bit there, aren't they? So our next video that we're going to look at is actually an advert for Jean Paul Gaultier's scents. And I'll be honest with you, there is so much going on in this video, you don't really know where to start. If we look at, I mean, you can see before we've even pressed play, you can see the tight-fitting outfits that are going on. You can see the suggestions in there. They've expanded massively the target market on this. They're looking at all genders, all sexes, or orientations, but you can see the very much perfection standard that runs through this. We see the body types for men, for women, for trans. We see the expectations and the makeup styles. You see the body types. You see the outfits. You also see it within the perfume bottles. You actually look at the bottles themselves that they've used as lighthouses. Have got 6-packs, 8-packs of perfect boutique figures. Have a look through what's going on. I'm sure there's also something that might surprise you there, will catch your eye. So let's just see what happens in this video. So again, I'm going to throw this back, as when this advert pops up on the telly, does it even really catch your eye? I mean, let's be honest, there's basically an orgy going on there, isn't there? It's all the precursors for it all. But is it even that kind of attention grabbing anymore? Is it that much of a shock factor, which is where it's kind of going, or where it would have been 15, 20 years ago? What standards does this, what does it dictate about our standards that we see it as normalised? Did anyone spy the surprise inclusion in there, by the way? 10, 11, 12-year-old kid that pops up towards the end. You know, we're talking about these kind of sexual standards, perfection, you know, all these different ideals that are thrown out there. Where's the 10, 11, 12-year-old kid coming to all of this? Did it even register? But again, we're coming back to normalisation, sexualised standards in society. Where are we at? It's a challenging one, isn't it? Now, finally, in our little mini case study of advertising, it's Marks and Spencer's, good old Marks and Spencer's, not just any food, is it? I'm sure you guys have seen this kind of marketing campaign. They've run for a while now, and it's a bit hand in hand with Nigella Lawson style, isn't it? It's making food sexy. So as this video plays, think about the background music. Think about the language they're using. What type of words are they using to describe the food? Think about the setting. Think about the voiceover. Also have a look at the camera angles they choose on that. What are they focusing on? There's an awful lot of drizzling liquid. And also have a look at, there's one thing in particular they focus on the slow-mo on. I'm just going to let it play through.
This is Collection, a range of incredible. This is Collection, a range of incredible food by M&S. Like succulent Collection Madagascan black tiger prawns. Or Collection slow-cooked short rib of beef, finished with a sumptuous truffle jus. Or handcrafted Collection creamy mushroom pasta sauce with mascarpone and truffle. This is not just M&S.
Did you notice which one of those camera shots got the slow-mo? It wasn't the gravy, was it? Not suggestive in any way. Interesting how they've kind of played on this, because I mean, yes, you can look at it as a bit of a laugh, you can look at it as a bit of fun, the way that they portray it, but you can also look at it from another angle. Is it part of this suggestive culture, this normalised culture, where even something like pornography is normalised from this early point? Yeah, the way it's been kind of viewed as naughty and dangerous, throwing it out there into this collective, this is what it is, this is how society is, this is what we expect. Interesting we start analysing it from that perspective of a normalised sexualised society, because there's no doubt, is there? You know, this is primetime television. It's not something on after 9 o'clock. Interesting when you start looking at it with that different set of eyes. So our next topic is something we've already mildly touched on, and that's the impact of social media. Now, when it comes to social media, we've said we already are well used to people portraying themselves in the best possible light. There's also filters that come through, people editing appearances, photoshopping for the older technological term to be used. But is it an accurate portrayal? Yeah, so that is one thing for us to consider. But let's actually step back a moment. Let's look in a bit more detail at what we mean by social media. So, a question: what is social media? We think we all understand that terminology. Do we? What is it? Okay. Now, there was a brilliant lecture I got to go to a while ago. Now, because I am the safeguarding lead at Transplant Master Train, I do get invited to some quite diverse events. One of those was SAFest, the Festival of Safeguarding. Yeah. Now, from that, there was actually a brilliant lecture, which was social media and online safety. But the twist was it was led by 14-year-olds. Now, I'm in my mid-30s. I'm of that generation that's seen Spectrums, Commodores, Amigas, dial-up tone internet. Yeah, it was very, very guilty of falling into that trap of thinking, I've seen it, I've watched it grow, I've seen the problems, I've seen them solved. We know the answers. And now the younger generation needs to learn from our mistakes. Very easy to fall into that trap. They actually asked this question: what is social media? So I'm just going to leave a moment whilst you can, in your own head, or say it out loud if you're watching this in the group, name a few platforms. Yeah, tell me what platforms are social media. Is it a platform? Is it a place? What is it? Tell me what it is. So did you fall into this trap? So the adults, I answered this. I fell into this trap. Straight away, my gut instinct was Facebook, MySpace. I did have one of those. Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok. I thought I was getting quite wild and pushing the boat out a little bit with TikTok. That's kind of outside of my comfort zone. But that was my interpretation of social media. The traditional platforms where you share pictures, you go onto each other's accounts, you can have a scroll, you see what's going on. That was my interpretation. Interestingly, and this was a bit of a wake-up call, but as soon as you kind of actually start considering the definition of it, that's not what the kids said. Their answers were Discord, Xbox Live, Steam Chat, PS Network, Roblox. Some of you might not have even heard of some of these, but when they say social media, Facebook is genuinely seen as, the old thing. People don't use it, and it was news to us. It was news to me that the world has moved on that much but it's obvious, isn't it? This definition of social media, it's media that you use to be social. It's that simple. The clue's in the title. And I think, to be honest with you, very much COVID played an impact on that. We went through a period where we had to reevaluate how to socialize, but that again put new strains on the system. So when we talk about Xbox Live, Steam Chat, PS Network, they're all gaming. Yeah, that is linked in with PlayStations, with Xboxes. Steam is a PC chat version, but they allow gamers to communicate. Now, when you're communicating, playing a game, it needs to be instant, doesn't it? So a lot of this is voice channel. And how do you monitor what is said on the voice channel? You can't, it's impossible to do it that live. Yeah, you can have systems in place that recognize certain words, but they tend to get around this if they want to discuss other topics by using code words or numbers. Just what I mean by that, to give you a very brief overview, 88, for example, if you see those two numbers together, 8 is the 8th letter of the alphabet, which is H, 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 so Heil Hitler. And they have these little code words, so they can get around live chat and things like that. That is obviously looking at it from a radicalization and extremism point of view. But you can see how these codes, these live checks are worked around. Discord is similar. It was designed to allow interactive chat for gamers all over again. So Steam, especially in its early days, kind of struggled with dealing with more than one member. It was seen as quite a clunky system. So Discord was developed for PC gamers in particular, and from there it's grown massively. It started off as kind of individual gaming room chats where you'd join a group if you were a fan of the game, or you could set your own ones up with your friends. But now there are topicalized Discord rooms, and based on the subject matter, you go in, you discuss it. But obviously, again, it's basically just a localized chat room where you go in with a subject matter of your choice. Roblox has always been quite controversial. It's a lovely idea, but it's so open to abuse. Roblox is an app, and it's lots and lots of free games basically, and it's aimed at kids. Think Minecraft in a way, but simpler. Roblox is target market under 10s realistically, but it's got an open chat. Now you put a GDPR hat on, a safeguarding hat, and all of a sudden you've got kids, you've got accounts that, let's be honest, anyone can create an account and say they are as old or as young as they want, can't they? And these accounts are created and there is unmonitored chat in there. You can see easily how that can become a problem. Now, with social media, I'm just going to create a storyline. I'm going to put a few loops together, okay? Let's say you have got a kid on PlayStation, on Xbox, and they're playing FIFA. They're only 10, 11, 12 years old, something like that, and they're playing FIFA. Now, the main way that you play computer games these days is multiplayer, online, and you encounter other gamers in just random mix-ups. Now, in that game, 10-minute match, and they're playing against someone who's got a headphone on. That is 10 minutes uninterrupted access that person has got to that kid's account, to that kid's head. Yeah. Now I am using the kid as the example here. It could be anybody, but I'm just using the kid because they are more vulnerable, and it's always a little bit more shocking when you think about it, because they're looking at this innocently. They're just playing a game of FIFA against someone else, and they're talking to them, and that creates a window to befriend, to start to build up a relationship. You know, oh, you scored an amazing goal. That was fantastic. What a game. Well done. Can I add you on my account? Maybe we should play again sometime. And all of a sudden, they're friends on their PlayStation account. Now, let's start going through some of the other social media platforms. Once you're friends, once you've played a few games, once they've started to build a relationship, oh, I saw something really funny the other day. Can I send you a picture? Have you got Snapchat or something? I just want to send you this. All of a sudden, they're now linked on a different platform as well, so Snapchat's in there. I'm sure some of you are aware, but Snapchat actually has the option that your friends can see your whereabouts. They can see exactly where you are on a map. You create an avatar, a little cartoony avatar. Again, who's that going to appeal to? Kids, obviously. So you've created a cartoon avatar of yourself, and all of a sudden, your friends can see exactly where you are on the map if that option is turned on. But let's be honest, if you're a kid and it looks fun and you can see where you are on a map, you're not necessarily thinking safety implications there, are you? But from a different set of eyes, as a stalker, you don't even need to do your homework anymore. You can literally flip on an act and you can see when the kid is on his own at a bus stop. It's a scary thought, isn't it, when you start tying these different platforms together and the knock-on effect of the journeys. Another shocking one for you, unfortunately, comes from TikTok. Now, TikTok has been quite famous for the little funky dances, hasn't it? The TikTok challenges, a set of music that plays and a set dance routine, and then people just try and maximize it. They want as many likes as possible, and it's an unofficial competition to see who can get the most likes, who can be the most engaged, who gets the most people behind them following. So that in itself isn't too shocking, but when thousands and thousands and thousands of people are all doing the same little dance routine, what's some of the easiest ways to stand out? The most common one is just to try and look sexy. Yeah, whether that is a little skimpy outfit, whether that is removing a few more clothes. But alarmingly, there's not really very much in the way of age guidance on there, on actually monitoring who's creating this content or who's watching it. Yeah, so you can go on there and there's some hugely debatable ages in some rather revealing outfits. But again, this is normalized. This is expected at the moment. Taking it that little bit further down and into a more shocking example, TikTok has also had some darker sides to its challenges. I'm sure you guys must have read in the news about the trend for holding the breath. So there was kids that were literally holding the breath for as long as they could until they passed out, and there was actually one kid that died from the complications there. For staying away from sexual harassment for just a moment, but to show you how dark some of these trends can go, chicken, Remember the childhood game Chicken, where kids stand in front of cars and jump out the way at the last minute? Dangerous behaviour, of course, and that made a comeback on TikTok. It was people jumping out the way of cars, but that gets a bit boring if everyone's jumping out the way of a Ford Fiesta or a Cinquecento. So how can you make that more exciting? So they started standing in front of buses, lorries, trains, and there was actually an individual who stood in front of a train and didn't get out the way in time. What a heartbreaking way for a kid to lose his life, by literally trying to record himself standing in front of a train. Yeah, but this behavior is encouraged because kids get a reward from it, the likes, the dopamine hit. You can talk about the impact of COVID or modern society, but very much so now it's seen as a measure of popularity, how many likes appear. Bringing it back to sexual harassment, there was actually a groping trend that went on, and it was basically not just kids, unfortunately, adults as well. And the aim of the game was getting onto public transport and seeing who the hottest person you could grope was and filming yourself doing it. Hugely damaging cultures that were then being rewarded by other people pressing like, other people viewing the content. So not only was the suggestion of the behaviour being put out there, but there was also a measured reward response to the behaviour. When you start looking at social media in this terms, we've seen the dive from playing a game to how potentially someone could be stalked from it. You've also seen the culture of normality it's breeding. You're also seeing the culture of celebrating bad behaviours that it's breeding. It's quite a scary world when you actually start to look at it through those eyes and not just the normalised view that we all have of it. So with all of that in mind, we've pulled off this image from the internet, and we have used it as a massive stereotype. Don't get me wrong, it is a big stereotype, but the selfie society, the looks that are encouraged. I'm going to ask the question, how old is this girl? Yeah, this is the look that is very much put forward on social media, isn't it? The pretty makeup, the traditional kind of aspect of beauty coming through, the look, the pout, all the behaviours going through there. But how old is she? Yeah, and let's be honest, you could go anywhere from 14 to 22 on that. We don't know. How is it monitored? How is it measured? Who's looking at this content? Are young girls encouraged to put this stuff out there? Unfortunately, the answer is yes. There was a fantastic experiment that one artist did, and let's be honest, how long does it take to become a good painter, a good artist? It's years, isn't it? Years and years of practice and then hours to create a piece. And this artist created a fantastic landscape image, and she put a picture up on her account of her holding it. And I think she got something like 73 likes, something like that. And she wanted to prove a bit of a point. Now, this same artist was going on holiday the week later. So while she was there, she took a picture of herself with the bikini on holiday in Spain. Guess how many likes that got? Something like over 2,000 on her account. It rocked up. And she measured it. She put the two responses out and said, what does our society value? Why is this being rewarded? All I've done is take my top off when my passion, everything I've done as a career, all the training I've done, all the hours and love I've put into something, no one's bothered about. So it's interesting when you kind of see what provokes a reaction. We know what should get a reaction, what should be approved, but what does society actually reward? And what does it then promote, especially in younger and more vulnerable minds? How is it encouraging them to act, to behave, to be, to present themselves? So we're going to talk a little bit now about two items on the list that are a little bit more shocking, a little bit more in your face, and that is reality TV and pornography. If we talk reality TV, let's go back in time to begin with, when it very first came about, Big Brother. Who were the people that the general public voted to keep in? Was it the quiet ones that were just getting on with things and being nice to people? Were it the outrageous ones? Were it the ones that were jumping in and out of bed and you could see under the duvets? They were the ones they wanted to see. So again, this promiscuous behaviour, this negative behaviour being rewarded, and it actually got rewarded pretty lucratively with TV deals afterwards as well, doesn't it? So that very much kind of promoted, act as badly as you can. You'll get paid for it, you'll get recognised for it. If we bring it into the modern day and we look at things like Love Island, it is literally how many people can you do in a few weeks? and you'll get rewarded for it. That is the standard being set. Not only are the physical looks being set, but also the hugely promiscuous behaviours. Cheating on each other, for example, is being classed as exciting and promoted. You might disagree with that, but in reality, that's what people are voting for, isn't it? That's what they want to see, that the personalities they want on the screens. So those behaviours are being rewarded. Now, pornography. Probably not something you expected to be discussing on your apprenticeship, but it's had a huge impact on society, especially in the last 10-15 years, and that is due to the rise of availability of the internet to everybody. Who has access to pornography? From what age? I know the answer you all should give, which is 18, but it's not reality, is it? Kids can get on there from any age. They can access it whenever they want. Some use it as sex ed. Let's be honest, there is actually a deficiency in there in some systems, and some have been known to look at it out of curiosity. Other times, kids are kids. They're going to look. Yeah. So with pornography, you do actually have to discuss who's it's made for, what's the market. Now, there's no doubting that pornography is a misogynistic market. It's been primarily created by men to watch for their own purposes. So what's the knock-on effect of it all? Again, there's actually quite a scary and dark line you can go down with this. You've got people using it for their own gratification. You've also got, as those minds become younger that are accessing it, what does it create as normal? Yeah, and that is the question. Don't forget, we're talking about sexualized normalization, the rape culture at the moment. So what's common in pornography? What themes are common in pornography? There's actually some quite violent behaviors, very, very male-dominated, male power behaviors that are created in there, which very much belittles women, gives men this kind of power kick. And that is what is normalized in the videos that are accessible to whoever logs in. Now, let's assume that younger lad has accessed it, watched it, decided that's what I want to do. Loads of people watch this. There's loads of videos available. Must be normal, so I want to do this. So his first encounter with a young girl, it's his first encounter as well, goes down this line of non-normal behaviour, shall we say, this aggressive, dominant behaviour. And the young girl, from her first experience, if it's all you've ever experienced, is it normal? That's the question. Then she meets up with another lad who's watched similar videos and he wants to do it too. Well, if everyone's doing it, it must be normal. You can see the line that this goes down. You can see the negative behaviours it encourages. There's also the argument that an oversaturation of pornography has led to a very warped kind of perception of how kids view each other, whether that is within different genders, whether that is within the same genders, but the expectations and standards set of how people should behave, of how often things should be given, of how willingly should be given. And that is down to, let's be honest, pornography is fiction. Yeah, it's all an act. But what standards does it set? What expectations does it set? And there's quite a scary line you can go down there when you think of it in those terms. So we've just discussed misogyny. What we're going to do now is, I'll be honest with you, when I got to this part in the presentation, I thought, how do you visualize it? What kind of images can you put on screen? So I literally just went onto Google and I typed in misogyny and clicked on Google Images. These are some of the ones that popped up, and they're quite damning in places, to be fair. This is, when we talk about normalization and expectations, this one caught me by surprise. It shouldn't have done, but it did, because this is very damning as to how we, do I use the word respect? How we respect the different body types, how we feel they need to be portrayed. You can see this is the same magazine in the same year, but the way they've put women out there to be sexy is basically strip them off. Yeah, strip them off. That's how they should be. Get the clothes off. This is how we push them as sexy. Whereas when it's come to the men, they've just put them in a nice fashionable suit. No eyes will be turned if you're walking down the street. You know, it's a very, very different way of treating the different bodies, treating the different genders, isn't it? But when you see those magazine covers, do you bat an eyelid? Does it even register that there's any difference in your head? It's only when they're put together that dramatically, that this is one standard, this is the other, that you actually start to question it. don't you? So don't forget, misogyny means male dominated. Yeah, it's hard to get out of that one, isn't it? Now let's have a look at this next slide. This one actually starts to discuss how early do these differences appear? At what point do this misogynistic kind of view on life, when do they start to manifest? This is a cartoon, but the more you look at it, the more you go, that's fair, actually. Now this is, let's imagine you've gone into B&M or Wilkinson, somewhere like that, and you're going to get a Halloween costume. You've got those for boys, Dracula, superhero, the ninjas, and then you've got the girls' outfits, sexiness, sexy witch, sexy vampire, the miniskirts, all coming out, the low-cut tops, you know, the different styling to the outfit. Ooh, that's actually a bit close to the bone, isn't it? When you actually think about what is out there, what is available, what type of dress up is encouraged, and that's not just, well, it is starting off at young kids, to be honest, isn't it? At what age do they start having this difference in costume, these different expectations coming through? But very, very obviously, as they go into teenage years and above, it's chalk and cheese, isn't it? Bit damning when you see that one, isn't it? At what early stage are we encouraging these ideas? So now we've had a look at the standards that have been set in modern society, and we've looked at it from several different angles, from male perceptive, female perceptive, from the look of different genders. How common is sexual harassment? Now, the case study that we've used is one that has been against women, and that's purely because it is more common. There's no getting away from that. It is much more common, and there's much more extensive research done out there. So our case study is from a female perspective. How common is sexual harassment? This first slide, this whole survey was taken from a group of 1,089 women, so call it 1,000. And out of that 1,000, if we look at these figures, that's quite high. Yeah, if we're stereotypical, we assume that the younger female is going to have experienced this more commonly, and that's what the results show. 18 to 24, around about 80%. 25 to 34, pretty much a similar number, only 2 or 3% different. But it doesn't really go down, does it? I mean, when you're looking at the 55 plus category, which with a stereotypical head on, you're assuming there wouldn't be a problem there as we get older. It shows that there very much is. We're around about 65, 70% still saying they've experienced sexual harassment in the public space. Let's take that out of percentage terms. Let's turn that into out of 10, especially 18 to 24. That's pretty much 8 out of 10 saying, yes, I have experienced sexual harassment in the public space. Even at 55 plus, 6, 7 out of 10 are saying, yes, I have experienced sexual harassment in the public place. So if they've said yes to this question, what behaviours are they considering to be harassment? What did they mean? So we've got some examples. Top of the list, catcalling, wolf whistling. Now, I've asked this question in the classroom. Why do lads do it? What do they think they're going to get out of it? And the most common answer is for a laugh, isn't it? That's a bit embarrassing, isn't it? You know, when we actually admit to things, it's just for a laugh. What are the knock-on impacts? Yeah, you will get people that will hugely intimidate. Do they want to be walking past a group of middle-aged blokes whistling at them? Of course they don't. Yeah, so there's going to be potential changes in self-perception. What messages am I giving off? They might just feel scared. They'll go down different routes. They'll take different walks. You know, self-doubt all creeping in. All of these knock-on effects just from people thinking of having a laugh. Now, the next one on the list, being stared at. This is one that I have had people challenge. They say, what? So I can't even look at people anymore. That's not what we're saying. There is a huge difference between looking, glancing, and staring, isn't there? In a classroom, it's one of my favourite tricks here. Rather than flicking my eyes about the room, which is how we all normally communicate, I'll pick someone. I'll fix at them. I'll just look at them. And it takes what? 3, 4, 5 seconds before that comes uncomfortable. There is a huge difference between looking and staring. And this is where this has gone in, being stared at, being made to feel uncomfortable. Don't forget, harassment is continued unwanted sexual behaviours as well. Yeah, harassment is continued unwanted behaviours. if you're looking, we all do that. You know, we all see someone we find attractive and glance and look and want to catch their eye. But if we are making them feel uncomfortable, this is where it becomes harassment. Also on this list, unwelcome touching, body rubbing or groping, in-person comments or jokes, unwelcome sexual advances or requests for sexual favours, being physically followed, indecent exposure, online comments to jokes, sharing of suggestive or indecent context online, being forced into participating in sexual behaviour, it's taken a much darker turn here, or having images taken and shared without their consent. Now, I'd actually suggest that that lowest one, having the pictures taken, is probably more common than we suspect. People just either don't notice, don't see it, or perhaps again just accept it happens. Now, another one I just want to mention here, and this is where we can challenge behaviour, being physically followed. If it's very, very easy from a male perspective to go, I'm not a problem, I'm not going to do anything, I'm just walking back. But I heard a superb interpretation of a scenario like this where you may, and I'm not just saying women, anyone can feel uncomfortable if they feel they're being followed. And the interpretation of this was, if there are 4 glasses of water in front of you and one of them contains poison, does that make you suspicious of all the glasses of water? Yes, it does. Yeah, if the media is saturated with negative stories, with bad news items, with real life scenarios that have happened where people have been followed, where they've been jumped, mugged, raped, is it going to intimidate people? And this is where I've talked about reanalyzing our behaviours. Is it sometimes for us to recognise that even though we're oblivious at times, is our behaviour making someone feel uncomfortable? Yeah, interpreting what are they worried about, what are their concerns. So just an example of that coming through. What about virtual harassment then, which is becoming unfortunately much more common in the modern age? So you can see on this slide women who have experienced sexual harassment, and this is all about sharing indecent content online or in person. Higher in the younger brackets again, but unfortunately this one's got a hidden side. It's actually on the rise with the older generations, and that is because the online safety awareness isn't there, the expectations aren't there. We've seen a rise in online dating, which has led to a rise in the sharing of images, whether they are decent, indecent, and unfortunately, as we've called it, normalization standards. What do they expect? And unfortunately, this rise has come in where people are feeling pressured to send images because they think, oh, is that what we do? Is that how it's done? And this kind of misunderstanding has started to come through as well. So an interesting spin on that slide. So we've seen how many people have experienced sexual harassment. How many of these incidents are actually reported then? It's damning, isn't it? It's really damning. So we've gone from 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 to what? 1? It's not even anywhere near 1, is it, realistically? And when we get to 55 plus, that is when we've got a bit more life experience behind us. We think this is right, this is wrong. Even then, it's not being reported. Why not? Why not? So let's have a look. What answers were given as to why is it so low? This is where it gets a bit humiliating, to be honest, isn't it? When we think about the standards set in modern Britain, we think about the standard of living, we think about the Equality Act. Remember, the Equality Act is there so that we all have the right to live without fear. We all have the right to live with the same opportunities. But look at the reality. Yeah, they didn't think the incident was serious enough to report. What does that say about standards? What does that say about expectations? Didn't think reporting would help. Thought that reporting wasn't worth the hassle. Didn't know reporting to an official organisation was even possible. It's not good reading this, is it? Let's move down the list. Didn't think I would be believed. Yeah, there's actually like a double victimisation going on there. Not only have they suffered in the first place, they're then feeling that they're going to be seen as a liar. They're going to get in trouble from it. Didn't want anybody to know. So embarrassment, again, this double victimization coming through. A fear of retaliation, thought that reporting would be dangerous or upsetting, worried about anonymity. It's horrible when we see these answers, but they're honest answers, aren't they? What standards have been set in modern society? What is the normalization of these activities? Didn't think it was important enough to report. That's very much saying, this is my lot, this is what I'm going to get, this is how it works, isn't it? And this is where I said at the start of the presentation, sometimes it's up to us to start challenging actions, whether it's our own behaviours, whether that is language that we use, or whether that is positioning on the street, anything like that. What knock-on effect can it be having? Is it up for us to sometimes have a deeper understanding of how it can make others feel, or is it about time to stand up and challenge inappropriate behaviours? There's a horrible word, banter, yeah, and it covers so many excuses is the word I'm going to use when people throw out that banter net and say, oh, it's all banter. It's not banter if it's making people feel uncomfortable. It's not banter if it's making people feel negatively about themselves. And it's time to challenge that. So let's do a quick recap of what we've covered. Why is sexual harassment and violence a focus? We've looked at the normalization of sexual stereotypes and negative behaviours in society. We've spoken about acceptance of negative and damaging behaviours. We've had a look at the instant and lasting impact on mental health. And we've also discussed cyberbullying and coercive behaviours and how that is having a rise in trend on not just the younger generation, but also the older generations too. So let's leave it on this statement. Sexual harassment and violence is everywhere. It's up to us to spot it. Do you agree or do you disagree? Thanks for watching. Hopefully you found the content in this module thought-provoking. What we'd like you to do next is, for your next step, move onto OneFile and to record on your timesheet the time you've spent in this lesson, which is 1 hour. And don't forget additional time for completing the attached worksheet for sexual harassment. The next slide contains the case study video that you will need to watch in order to complete that worksheet. Please bear in mind as you watch this video everything we've discussed today as you interpret the actions on the screen. If there's any feedback you'd like to provide us about this lesson, then please add it on to the notes on your worksheet or get in touch with your direct skills officers or curriculum leads. Thank you very much.
Unless...
You must be Kat.
Yes.
Nice perfume. Stock order's done.
But I was just coming back to finish it.
Ah, teamwork, innit? Brains and beauty. See ya. These staff nights are important. Being a team, having a laugh. One drink. You look like you need it.
I should get going.
I'll get you a taxi.
No, it's fine.
No, I've got it. And I'll carry it on. What's your address?
All right.
Thank you.
Oh, you're not taking that on home?
I forgot to split it. Doesn't matter. I'll book another. Unless...
Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I thought I was getting signals. Are we okay?
Yeah, of course. I just need to get in. See ya.
You shouldn't have to expect that in a work environment. You shouldn't have to expect your co-worker or anybody making you feel uncomfortable like that.
The poor guy's read a few missed signals. You can't help but feel sorry for him in a way. She's not ever said once, no, I don't want this.
What would you kind of feel uncomfortable with what Ryan had done?
I would have liked a conversation before he tried to get physical with me. I would have liked him to sit me down and say, he didn't make it clear.
I personally, if one of my work friends, touched my back or, complimented perfume, I wouldn't have took offence. She might be different. I mean, if she found it offensive, she should have definitely said something.
Would you have taken offence if you were in that scenario?
I would have, at the point of him kissing me, for A, assuming that he could kiss me, B, telling the taxi to leave, and there was a lot of assumptions there, so I would have been offended.
She asks him to help her with the stock software, and he leans in. Is he too close at that moment?
He's basically leaning over her shoulder, his arm is almost around her.
He smells her perfume.
I think it's nice. If someone compliments you on your smell, that's a nice thing.
For me, when he put a hand on the back and he rode it down towards her waist, she moved it. She might not have spoken anything, but that to me is a massive indicator. That's the end of that one.
Is it ever okay to try and kiss a work colleague?
If she's giving off you those signals and you like her and you know she likes you, it's like, yeah, it's fine, it's fair game, do you know what I mean, at the end of the day? I think there's nothing wrong with it.
I just don't see what he's done wrong. She hasn't told him no until the kiss.
Should Kat take offence from Ryan's behaviour?
I think she has every right to be offended.
The first negative report you made was after the evening of September 20th. Can you tell us what was unique about that night?
That was the night she messed up the stock order. We had people queuing 3 deep, unable to get a drink.
It was also the night you kissed Miss Timms.
But that didn't even happen at work.
Your colleague sent you a text message asking after the fit new duty manager. Could you take a look at document 23 in the file beside you and read it out loud, please? This is the message you sent in response.
No luck so far, but she wants it, mate. She just doesn't know it yet. But they can't resist my charms for much longer. I'm a very persuasive boy.
You wanted Miss Timms, and you were determined to persuade her that she wanted it too.
No, look, it was banter. It's showing off.
No, it was a declaration of intent.
What is sexual harassment?
Well, sexual harassment is any unwanted conduct that's related to sex that has the purpose or effect of violating someone's dignity. So if the individual intends to violate dignity, you tick the box. But also if the individual doesn't intend to violate dignity, but the effect is that the dignity is violated, that ticks the box as well. So it's either.
Given the fact that we've seen the text messages, we know his intent.
Yeah.
And so is the perfume comment sexual harassment?
Yes, the perfume comment is sexual harassment. Would he say to a man, you've got nice perfume?
Beauty in the brain?
Yes, if it's related to her sex, if it has the purpose or effect of violating her dignity.
Touching her back?
Any kind of form of physical contact at work, you're getting yourself into trouble, other than a shake in the hand.
Unless...
And then the kiss?
Providing we could establish it was linked to the work, he was acting within the course of his employment, that's sexual harassment.
And is it a case that these things individually could be harassment, or is it them together form a case that is essentially harassment as a whole?
They can be sexually harassment individually, but if you have a lot of minor incidents together, they might not look like sexual harassment on their own. But when you create the bigger picture, you'd identify it was sexual harassment, yeah.